Hello, I'm Julian Bright of Informer. We're here at LTE Asia, and I'm with YK Ha, who is Deputy Director General of the Hong Kong Telecommunications Regulator. Hello, Mr. Ha.
Hello, Julian.
Mr. Ha, you have already, I believe, auctioned spectrum in Hong Kong for LTE. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yes, we conducted the auction in this January.
Yes.
And we believe we have a very successful auction. So the three licenses were auctioned at a total price of over 1.5 billion Hong Kong dollars.
I see. And how many operators were successful in that process?
Three operators were successful. There were a total of 5 bidders.
I see. And how much spectrum did they acquire and in which spectrum bands?
Each of the three successful operators got 50 megahertz times 2 in the 2.5 gigahertz band.
I see. And those operators are?
The operators are China Mobile, CSL, and also a joint venture between Hutchison and PCCW.
I see. Now you were also offering. This was FDD spectrum, I understand. You were also offering TDD spectrum, which wasn't taken up, I believe.
Yes, in the auction exercise, we also made available TDD spectrum, both in the 2.3 gigahertz band and also within the guard band of the FDD spectrum in the 2.5 gigahertz band. But the result was such that nobody was interested in the TDD spectrum.
I see. There was some discussion earlier in one of the panel sessions about the appropriate bandwidth available for LTE. Do you feel that the 15 megahertz blocks that you've offered are adequate to provide a mobile broadband service based on LTE?
At the time when we were decided to make available 50 megahertz times 2 for each of the three licensees, there were feedbacks telling us that it would not be sufficient because it would not be able to realize the full capacity or the ability of the 3GPP as technical specifications. But of course, there's a limit in the spectrum available because Hong Kong is just next door to China. We have to coordinate with China on the use of the band. So 50 megahertz times 2, 3 licenses was the best that we can do.
It's an interesting point that China Mobile, which is adopting a TDD version of LTE in China, has purchased FDD spectrum in Hong Kong.
Yes, this is a very interesting point. When we learned that China Mobile was coming along, taking part in the auction, we all thought that they should be more interested in the TDD spectrum in the 2.3 gigahertz band, because this was the standard band for LTE TDD. But somewhat to our surprise, they decided to take part in the bidding for the FDD spectrum in the 2.5 gigahertz band. But of course, that represented their business decision.
Yes, I see. And how soon would you expect to see LTE, commercial LTE services launched in Hong Kong?
You already have listened to the presentation of Mr. Tarek Robiati yesterday. He's the CEO of CSL. We understand CSL was going to have a commercial trial in early part of next year. And as to when commercial service will be available, I think this will depend on the availability of the equipment, both for the network and also for the customers.
So do you believe operators will be keen to launch LTE in Hong Kong's competitive market?
I believe so. If I may say, Hong Kong is one of the most competitive mobile market in the world. We have 5 mobile operators operating a total of 13 networks. So I cannot tell exactly when they will launch commercial service of LTE. But if you look at what they are doing with HSP Plus, they're all very keen, to compete in the latest technology.
Yes. And will you be allocating any further spectrum for LTE in the future?
Just now I mentioned we have still this TDD spectrum.
Yes.
TDD spectrum in the 2.3 gigahertz band. So nobody was interested in taking up the spectrum in January this year. But we are always ready. if there are interested party coming along to ask for the spectrum, then we are always ready to put this out to the market.
I see. Okay, Mr. Ha, thank you very much.
Thank you.